Welcome to Plainview. I'm Jeff Zatters. Today we are going to review and talk about the movie Signs. This is M. Night Shyamalan's 2002 release. It's his third feature film. Of course, he broke through and won major awards and success with The Sixth Sense, which was then followed up by Unbreakable, and then we had Signs come out about a year later. Signs is, of course, well known. It's one of his best movies. I think it's his best movie. It's certainly my favorite movie. Just the vibe, the tone, the acting. To me, the story, there are certainly flaws with it, but it's a pretty great movie. I know there are a lot of people that are really mad at the ending. So I will talk about that. So spoiler alert on the front here. I'm going to talk about everything. So if you haven't seen this movie and you want to see this movie, please turn off, pause, come back after you've seen it. This film deals with extraterrestrials, but really it's talking about family. This is really a movie about a father and his family. The aliens and the extraterrestrial and the sci-fi elements of this movie is really just the background. It's really just the world. The story is about a widowed father and his children and his adult brother. So I'm going to talk through a couple of themes here. This is one of Shyamalan's noir films. It deals with religion and faith. It deals with fatherhood. It deals with adult siblings and adult brotherhood, which isn't, I think, talked about a lot in films. And really what it means to use such a grand scope of alien invasion simply as a backdrop for a relatively simple family drama. So I'm going to talk through all of these things, talk about my feelings about the film, and hopefully leave you with a good sense of how I feel about Signs and whether it's something that you should add to your collection. Signs was released in 2003 on DVD, and then a couple years later on Blu-ray. It has never received a 4K release. I'm streaming it right now via Apple TV. To me, it looks very similar to the Blu-ray, so I don't think they've done a 4K scan of it. But we'll see. Maybe one day it'll come out on 4K. I think it deserves it. We have featured in this movie Mel Gibson, who stars as Father or Father Graham, his brother Joaquin Phoenix, Meryl, and then Mel Gibson's Graham's two children. Rory Culkin plays Morgan, the son, and then his daughter. And then Cherry Jones, who is an amazing character actor that you've seen in a number of things, plays Officer Paskey, who is sort of the... she's the person that Graham can talk to. She's the chorus for our film. This story really focuses on the sort of backdrop is an alien invasion. We're faced with these mysterious crop circles, these signs that come in that we can't really explain. We do get exposure to the actual alien. I'm going to talk about that a little bit and what that means. But it's the signs. And the signs, of course, this movie came out 22 years ago. I'm not going to say anything new about this movie, just my insights. Signs is, of course, talking about, on one level, the crop circles, the signs of an alien invasion or an alien species coming to visit us. And then the other more metaphorical part of signs is the connections, the signs that serve to maybe reaffirm the faith that Father Graham has lost. So in this story, it's told in a non-linear fashion. We learn towards maybe Act 2 or 3 that Graham, I'm just going to call him Graham, that Graham's wife died in a car accident. She was a pedestrian in a car accident. And as a result of that accident, Graham loses his faith. He stops being a father in his community. He stops preaching and kind of draws into himself and loses his faith. And so the signs that are explored through the movie are the signs that you could maybe say that God or a divine force is sending him to bring him back and to prove that God is real and that religion matters and that faith is important. Okay, so this movie was shot on a $72 million budget. It grossed worldwide $408 million, so obviously a major success. Another thing just to talk about, we don't really talk about this now in a streaming world, but this movie crushed it when it came to DVD rentals. It made more money on DVD rentals than it did in ticket sales. I think I saw in the first year that it was released on DVD, it made something in the range of $600 million in DVD rentals. it made 400 million in the theater. So that whole business model is, of course, no longer with us. But I think that was just a striking number to show how powerful this film was within one generation of where we are in 2024. Okay, let me dive into a little bit of the film. This is a noir film. This is a modern noir film. What you see, this is one of the things about this movie that can turn people off. A lot of the acting, especially the character acting, the people in the town, M. Night Shyamalan's cameo as the person who was the driver that struck Graham's wife. A lot of the acting is very stilted, very characterized, very noir. It's very theatrical. And that is not a realistic tone, and that can turn people off. I think if you just embrace it, it's a little bit corny, it's a little bit noir-y. There is a certain magic to that, there's a certain spell to it, so if you can embrace it, I think it actually adds value. But this whole thing is a noir. We're sort of draped in mystery, we're draped in this cloud of uncertainty as to what is coming to Earth, what is going to happen, what are these signs. Now, with Graham's faith, we see in the opening shot of the film, there's an outline on Graham's bedroom wall of the sort of the dust or the dirt that had gathered around a cross or a crucifixion that is no longer there. It's a pretty overt symbol, a pretty blatant symbol of faith lost. But I think it's a powerful one nonetheless, and in the closing shot, we see that the cross has been replaced. So a nice little closure there. But really, what really strikes me about Graham's journey through this process is, it's pretty typical to, in the face of a loss, in the face of tragedy, to a lot of people turn away from God. They turn away from their faith. A lot of people turn towards it. I think it just depends on your relationship with your faith in that time in your life. Graham turns away from his faith. He abandons God. And in the same way, he deserts his post, his duty as a spiritual leader or guide for his family. That includes his children as well as his brother who lives with them. It sounds like his brother Merrill moved in after the death of the wife to help Graham transition with his two children. At the end of the day, we see all of these signs coming together. Again, I'm going to spoil this for you. The ending scene with the aliens, there's one alien who is sort of left behind, who comes and invades their home directly. It's a really, to me, it's very powerful, especially on a first watch effect. You have the invasion, you have the nighttime scene, they are trapped in their house, you hear all the loud booms and bangs. It's a very thriller horror movie segment. The night ends, you feel the calm, you feel you're in the repose of the last act, and lo and behold, there's an alien who's actually inside the house. Now, when you see it in the first time, it's a really good effect. You see the alien in the reflection of a TV. I thought that was fantastic. But in this final scene, you have a number of signs coming together. So through the course of the movie, in a very Hitchcockian way, you see all these little seeds, these little tidbits being fed into the story. And at the very end, they're all tied incredibly nicely into a little bow. And all these signs connect to show that nothing in this universe, in this story, nothing happens without a reason. That there's a reason for everything. And there's a reason for Graham's wife dying. There's a reason why Merrill never made it to the pros. He was a rock star, sort of an all-star high school and college baseball player. There's a reason why he never fulfilled his dream to be a professional baseball player. There's a reason why Graham's son, Morgan, has asthma and has a debilitating issue, a health issue. There's a reason why the daughter continuously leaves out half-empty glasses of water. All these things tie in, that nothing happens without a reason. I do think there is some ambiguity. I do think in that play on what signs means, there is some ambiguity, primarily in that if you go with this idea that everything happens for a reason, that there's a reason why all of these signs tie together, it does require the admittal that a divine intervention, a divine force, a God coming in to lay these signs, to lay this path, is preferential to humans, or at least is preferential to Graham's family. To me, that is very clean. That's a very clean plot line. That's a very clean movie line. That's what you would expect from a piece of fiction. But it also presupposes a little bit of a small mindset on the universe, a little bit of a closed mindset on the universe, that a divine entity would prefer one species to another, that maybe the aliens are the good guys. You know, if Signs was being shot, if this movie was being shown to the alien species that invaded Earth, this would be a tragedy. So, you know, you always have to look at these dramas with a grain of salt. I'm probably overreaching a little bit. I doubt that it went this far, but if you suppose that the signs that everything happens for a reason, you're supposing that there is a good guy and a bad guy. You're assuming that there is a right way that things should end. And when you assume, or when you give the premise that things should end in a certain way, that there is a happy ending, you're supposing that that happy ending necessarily requires an unhappy ending for someone else. It depends on your view on God, if that's possible. Certainly in a Christian faith, in a Christian realm, the Christian faith, you could very well argue that, you know, Christ was modeled after that you know, Christ was made in the image of humans, and that humans are a divine species. If you don't believe in God, if you don't have that Christian faith, none of this really applies to you. And so I think when you come in and you watch this movie, you have to apply your own deistic thoughts, your own religious frame, and how you feel about the Almighty, and whether he would play favorites. And if you feel like, you know, humans are the best, if you feel like Graham's family is the best, then yes, everything happened for a reason. If not, maybe we look for signs. Maybe we find signs in things that don't really exist. Maybe we find these things out there. We make stories. We pull together stories. Humans are known as, I mean, we wouldn't survive, we wouldn't be here if we didn't tell stories. Stories are a part of the fabric of our evolution and our survival. And the signs in this film, the signs in M. Night Shyamalan's script, tell a story. They thread a needle through these signs. So, you know, surface level, everything happens for a reason. Deeper a little bit, you just scratch a little bit on that surface, and maybe it's not really that way. Maybe things really just do happen, and it's the connection that we make in our minds. It's ourselves that tell a story, that craft a story, and there is no bigger picture. There's something in this movie that isn't in many movies. There are a few scenes in a couple of movies. I can watch the movie, I can watch the scene 100 times, 1,000 times. I've seen Signs probably 20 times. Every time I see it, my stomach drops. The initial impact, the initial effect of the shot is the same as the first viewing. In this case, it's in Act 1 when Meryl and Graham hear some noises outside. They think it's the sort of neighborhood bad kids. And they go, and they're about to go hunt for these kids and sort of figure out what's making these sounds and what's happening. Graham is talking to his daughter who's just had a nightmare. And it's a two shot, or actually it's a one shot on each character. And when the shot comes back to Graham, he's looking at his daughter who's just told him a story. He's consoling his daughter, and he just glances up to look out the window, and standing on the roof is the silhouette of an unknown creature, who is the alien, but we don't know that at that point. That shot of the silhouetted figure on the roof, every time I see it, I know it's coming. I've seen it 1,000 times. My heart stops. It is one of the most effective shots I've ever seen in any movie. Another scene in a different movie, a totally different landscape, is in Interstellar, it's in Act 2, when they are traveling towards the black hole. The first time you see the black hole, I've seen Interstellar 30, 40 times. I've seen that scene 50, 60 times. Every time I see that black hole for the first time, there is a sense of dread, a sense of my heart stopping. And there's only a handful of scenes like that. Signs has one of them. That scene of that alien standing on that roof in the moonlight, in the silhouette, is just incredible. This movie also explores adult siblinghood and adult brotherhood. You know, Meryl is the baseball player who fell off of his shooting star. He has moved in with Graham to help Graham father his parents and the loss of his spouse. And Merrill is lost. He is searching for his purpose. He's searching for his reason to be here. He had identified as a baseball player for his young life, and he's no longer that, so what is he? Graham has always provided Merrill a sense of place, a sense of belonging as his brother, as his spiritual leader, as almost his father. And there's one of the most amazing scenes, certainly I think the best scene in this film, and a top 20 scene. Graham and Merrill sitting on the couch late at night. The TV light is bathing them in a flickering white. They're watching the sort of newscast of what's happening in the world. We still don't have any real idea of what's actually going to happen. And they're talking about faith and whether signs exist and whether there's proof, if there's any sort of way that we can know that there's someone watching out for us. Graham doesn't give Merrill what he needs. And it's a really powerful painting, a very powerful portrayal of when you look up to someone, when you look up to an older brother, when you look up to a mentor, when you look up to a father who lets you down, what that feels like when you need it the most. And it's portrayed so beautifully. There's a little bit of comedy, there's a comedic element to that scene, but it's one of the most striking scenes that I've seen. The mood, the lighting, the acting is just phenomenal. And the turn at the end of that scene is just devastating. And it really it puts you in a position as a viewer, you want Graham to find his faith. You want that warmness back. You know that Merrill is searching for that warmness, for that confidence, for that safety. And as the audience, you want it too. You want to know what's going to happen. And you want Graham to not only comfort Merrill, not only to be the big brother that he always has been, but to be your brother and to help you as the viewer through this. The other scene in this movie that strikes me every time is, and actually has inspired a little bit of my own life, is there's a dinner scene. This is the dinner, it's a family dinner before the sort of big nighttime when they know that the attack is going to happen. It's almost like a last meal. And Mel Gibson plays it so well. He decides that for this sort of final meal, they don't know if they're going to survive the night, that everyone can have what they want for dinner. So someone gets spaghetti, someone else wants a big cheeseburger, someone else wants Chinese food. So you have this messy kitchen, all the pots and pans, you have this full table, you have this seated family, and it devolves into tears and emotion and anger. And it is a striking scene. It's affected my own life in that now I've created a tradition. On New Year's Day, I let our kids choose what they want to have for their first meal. It's annoying. It is hard work. It creates a lot of mess. But it's a cool thing to let your children, the first day of the year, the first meal of the year, to let them eat whatever they want for their first meal of a new year. This year, our big kids chose ice cream. So at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m., whatever it was on New Year's Day, their first meal was a big bowl of ice cream. I think that's pretty nice. I want to talk a little bit about the ending, only because it's received such a backlash, and this is going to be my sort of last point about this film. Spoiler, the weakness of the aliens we learn is water, that they cannot stand water. That it's poisonous or it's toxic to their physical self. And we learn this in maybe the beginning of Act 3. We learn that might be their weakness. And it turns out that that's what their weakness is. We don't learn this until we discover it for ourselves in the final scene. In the scene where all the pieces come together, we sort of discover it along with the family that water is the weakness. And that's the reason why, or that's how humankind fended off the invasion. You know, people say that all life requires water, that how can an alien space force come to Earth as sophisticated as it can be and not protect themselves from water. This again is assuming a lot. To assume that all life requires water is a leap. And I'm going to sound unscientific, but you know, you're always told that all life requires water. That's all life as we know it. there could very well be life forms that don't require water, that are actually poisonous, that find water poisonous or toxic. There's no grand rule that says that all life needs water. So life as we know it requires water. And it also assumes that the aliens failed, that they left without succeeding in their mission. However, it's posited in Act 1 that there are multiple outcomes from an alien invasion, one of which is a full invasion and a takeover of the Earth. But another possibility is they're coming to harvest. They're coming to harvest people for some unknown reason, to either as a fuel source, as scientific research, for fun. We don't know. And even if they were fended off with water, if we figured out that they can't stand water, they still could have succeeded in their mission. They still could have harvested 1,000 people or 10,000 people and been drawn away once we figured out what their weakness was. So there's no saying that the aliens didn't actually win, that they didn't succeed in their mission. So I don't buy this idea that it's a bad ending because aliens can't stand water. I think it's a perfectly reasonable premise. And I'm going to get some hate for that, but I think it's totally reasonable. It's a reasonable stance. Is it the best plot ever? No. But I think it holds up. I think it's real. And by the way, this is a movie. This is a movie about aliens. You have to suspend your disbelief. Now, there is a point, there's a threshold where you want to have some semblance of buy-in, right? It's also a movie. I get people who say that would never happen, or this is so unrealistic. Okay, so a movie about crop circles and aliens coming to Earth is unrealistic in one way. You can't take everything as literal or serious as that. So, M. Night Shyamalan, I grant you, from plain view, I grant you a pass. It's okay. The water thing is okay. Signs, 2002. I really like this film. To me, I probably saw this when I was in high school. It hits a certain nostalgic spot for me. Actually, the last film that I did last week, 25th Hour, is also 2002. Total coincidence. Didn't really know that until I brought up the research for this episode. I guess I like two films from 2002. I would have been 15 or 16 that year. I love Signs. And if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's on all the platforms. Get it on Blu-ray for the best possible experience. To me, this is a 4 out of 5. I really like this film. And is it perfect? No. Are there plot weaknesses? No. Is the acting sometimes corny and canned? Yes. It pulls a heartstring for me. And I'll probably talk about this in a lot of episodes, certainly the episodes that have fathers, or the movies that have fathers. As I became a father 5 years ago, as I've begun to raise small children, these movies take on a whole new meaning and a whole new life. And the realities of Graham protecting his family, of Meryl stepping in, reach different parts of you that I didn't understand or didn't really grasp or have the language for before I became a father. So it's a special film for me. Go see it. All right. Thank you for watching Plainview.